Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is just the audio test for the press. I don't really have anything to say. Yeah, you're not supposed to hear me. This is for the press. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is for the press. Can we let the press know so that they can catch? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Testing 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here today. Gabe, do you need to switch? You feel like talking? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. This is not for you. This is for the press. This is the audio test for the press. Sorry, so no one should be able to hear me unless you write up on me right now. This is the audio test for the press, only for the press. So everyone who's in the front standing looking at me, I love you, but this is not for you. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You good? Rides are good. Thank you so much. Mute this.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the United States Department of Defense, we welcome you to the annual September 11 observance to honor and remember the 184 lives lost on American Airlines Flight 77 and at the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m. on September 11, 2001. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sajil Ahmed, Acting Director of Administration and Organizational Policy.
DoD senior leaders, federal congressional leaders, families, friends of the victims, survivors here in the building, our Pentagon community, and all the partners over here, and who's watching electronically. I want to welcome all of you to the Pentagon Memorial, and I want to welcome all of you to the September 11 observance. As we gather here to remember the victims of the horrific attacks 18 years ago, we will never forget the victims were the parents, spouses, children, co-workers, and friends. We will never forget the survivors in the building. We will never forget the first responders, both from inside the Pentagon and from outside the Pentagon, who rushed in with all the partners, the county, state, and federal, to help save lives and stabilize the building. Being here at the Pentagon on September 11, I will never forget the day of September 11 and the following days and months to help with recovery and to help rebuild the Pentagon, our national defense icon. We are all connected together as one Pentagon family, all of us. We are much stronger, we are much resilient to defend our nation and to do what's right. Again, I want to welcome all of you to the Pentagon Memorial and to this observance. Thank you very much.
Please remain silent and silence all mobile devices for the duration of the ceremony and as the names of those who were killed 18 years ago are remembered.
Dr. Paul W. Ambrose. Specialist Craig S. Amundsen, United States Army. Petty Officer, 3rd Class, Melissa Rose Barnes, United States Navy. Master Sergeant, Max J. Belkey, United States Army retired. Dr. Yenene Beatru. Petty Officer, 2nd Class, Chris Romeo Bishundat, United States Navy. Carrie R. Blackburn. Colonel Canfield D. Boone, United States Army. Mary Jane Booth. Donna M. Bowen. Alan P. Boyle. Bernard C. Brown II. Petty Officer, 3rd Class, Christopher L. Burford, United States Navy. Captain Charles F. Burlingame III, United States Navy Reserve, retired. Petty Officer, 3rd Class, Daniel M. Caballero, United States Navy. Sergeant 1st Class, Jose O. Calderon Almedo, United States Army. Suzanne M. Calley. Angeline C. Carter. Sharon A. Carver. William E. Caswell. Sergeant 1st Class, John J. Chatta, United States Army, retired. Rosa Maria Chapa. David M. Charleboy. Sarah M. Clark. Julian T. Cooper. Asia S. Cotton. Lieutenant Commander Eric A. Cranford, United States Navy. Ada M. Davis. James D. Debonair. Captain Gerald F. DeCanto, United States Navy. Rodney Dickens. Lieutenant Colonel Jerry D. Dickerson, United States Army. Eddie A. Dillard. Petty Officer, 1st Class, Johnny Doctor Jr., United States Navy. Captain Robert E. Dolan Jr., United States Navy. Commander William H. Donovan, United States Navy. Lieutenant Commander Charles A. Draws III, United States Navy, retired. Commander Patrick Dunn, United States Navy. Petty Officer, First Class, Edward T. Earhart, U.S. Navy. Barbara G. Edwards. Lieutenant Commander Robert R. Elseth, United States Navy Reserve. Charles S. Falkenberg. And his wife, Leslie A. Whittington. And their two children, Dana Falkenberg and Zoe Falkenberg. Petty Officer, Third Class, Jamie L. Fallon, United States Navy. J. Joseph Ferguson. Amelia V. Fields. Gerald P. Fisher. Darlene E. Flagg. And her husband, Rear Admiral Wilson F. Flagg, United States Navy Reserve, retired. Petty Officer, Second Class, Matthew M. Flacco, United States Navy. Sandra N. Foster. First Lieutenant Richard P. Gabriel, United States Marine Corps, retired. Captain Lawrence D. Getzfred, United States Navy. Cortez Gee. Brenda C. Gibson. Colonel Ronald F. Galinsky, United States Army, retired. Ian J. Gray. Diane Hale McKenzie. Stanley R. Hall. Carolyn B. Hellman. Michelle M. Heidenberger. Sheila M. S. Hine. Petty Officer, First Class, Ronald J. Hemingway, United States Navy. Major Wallace Cole Hogan, Jr., United States Army. Staff Sergeant Jimmy I. Hawley, United States Army, retired. Angela M. Houts, Brady K. Howell, Peggy M. Hurt, Lieutenant Colonel Stephen N. Highland, Jr., United States Army. Lieutenant Colonel Robert J. Heimel, United States Air Force, retired. Sergeant Major Lacey B. Ivory, United States Army. Brian C. Jack. Stephen D. Jacoby. Lieutenant Colonel Dennis M. Johnson, United States Army. Judith L. Jones. Ann C. Judge. Brenda Kegler. Chandler R. Keller. Yvonne E. Kennedy. Norma Cruz Khan. Karen Ann Kincaid. Lieutenant Michael S. LaManna, United States Navy. David W. Lachek. Dong Chol Lee. Jennifer Lewis. And her husband, Kenneth E. Lewis. Samantha L. Lightbourne Allen. Major Stephen V. Long, United States Army. James T. Lynch, Jr. Terrence M. Lynch. Petty Officer 2nd Class, Nahaman Lyons IV, United States Navy. Shelley A. Marshall. Teresa M. Martin. Ada L. Mason Acker. Lieutenant Colonel Dean E. Matson, United States Army. Lieutenant General Timothy J. Maud, United States Army. Robert J. Maxwell. Renee A. May. Molly L. McKenzie. Dora Marie Menchaca. Patricia E. Mickley. Major Ronald D. Milam, United States Army. Gerard P. Moran, Jr. Odessa V. Morris. Petty Officer 1st Class, Brian A. Moss, United States Navy. Teddington H. Moy. Lieutenant Commander Patrick J. Murphy, United States Navy Reserve. Christopher C. Newton. Kang Nok Ken Win, Petty Officer Second Class Michael A. Noeth, United States Navy. Barbara K. Olson. Ruben S. Ornado. Diana B. Pedro. Lieutenant Jonas M. Panic, United States Navy Reserve. Major Clifford L. Patterson, Jr., United States Army. Robert Penninger. Robert R. Plogger III. And his wife, Sandra F. Plogger. Lieutenant Darren H. Puntel, United States Navy Reserve. Scott Powell. Captain Jack D. Punches, United States Navy, retired. Petty Officer First Class Joseph J. Piesier, Jr., United States Navy. Lisa J. Raines. Deborah A. Ramser. Rhonda Sue Rasmussen. Petty Officer First Class Marcia D. Ratchford, United States Navy. Martha M. Reski. Todd H. Rubin. Cecilia E. Lawson, Richard. Edward V. Rauenhorst. Judy Rowlett. Sergeant Major Robert E. Russell, United States Army, retired. Chief Warrant Officer William R. Ruth, United States Army Reserve. Charles E. Sabin, Sr. Marjorie C. Salamone. John P. Sammartino. Colonel David M. Scales, United States Army. Commander Robert A. Schlegel, United States Navy. Janice M. Scott. Lieutenant Colonel Michael L. Selves, United States Army, retired. Marion H. Serva. Commander Dan F. Shanower, United States Navy. Antoinette M. Sherman. Diane M. Simmons.
That's supposed to be behind here.
Hilda E. Taylor. Lieutenant Colonel Kip P. Taylor, United States Army. Leonard E. Taylor. Sandra C. Taylor. Sandra D. Teague. Shu-In Young. And her husband, Yu Guang Jing.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain silent for the arrival of the official party. The national anthem performed by the United States Navy Sea Chanters, a moment of silence to honor those killed at the Pentagon, and the invocation delivered by Chaplain Major General Stephen Scheich, Air Force Chief of Chaplains. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph F. Dunford, Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of Defense, Dr. Mark T. Esper. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and Mrs. Melania Trump.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled yet wave for the land of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a prayerful moment of silence. O God, our help in ages past, for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Loving God, 18 years ago, terrorists sought to crush and divide us. We witnessed the true American spirit. We rejoiced with survivors, shed tears for people we never met. We gave thanks for the men and women who put their lives at risk in an attempt to rescue and aid total strangers. And today we remember the children, parents, spouses, family, and friends whose hearts will forever know the sting of grief. Do not, we pray, let our hope be overtaken by anger. Do not, we pray, let our hearts remain flooded with despair. Be present help in trouble, and help us rest in your promise that of many faiths, nations, and cultures gathered today, use this ceremony to make all of us a little more like the Twin Towers survivor, Mr. Primwith, who said, "I still have the shoes I wore to work that day. The soles are melted, and they're caked in ash. And they're my reminder of God's presence and the life I owe to Him." May this be our prayer. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph F. Dunford, Jr.
Mr. President, Mrs. Trump, Secretary and Mrs. Esper, distinguished guests, and most importantly to the survivors and family members that have fallen who are with us, good morning. It's an honor to join you at this sacred place where 184 men, women, and children were taken from us before their time. They and those lost at the World Trade Center and in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, were the innocent victims of an unprovoked attack. And while they were taken from us prematurely, their memory lives on. We're here today to renew our commitment to never forget. The terrorist attacks were intended to challenge our way of life, and they sought to break our spirit. But their purpose was never realized. That day made us stronger, more determined, and more resolved to protect our nation and that for which it stands. As President George Bush said from the Oval Office in the hours after the attacks, terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel. They cannot dent the steel of American resolve. And that resolve carries on. As we stand here today, our nation's soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen are performing their duty across the globe, doing what must be done. And so, as we pause this morning to remember and honor those lost on 11 September 2001, I hope the American people also find comfort in knowing that a new generation of men and women have stepped forward to serve and protect our way of life. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to introduce someone who has embraced public service for decades, our 27th Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Mark Esper.
Thank you, General Dunford. Mr. President, First Lady, members of Congress, fellow cabinet members, men and women of the Department of Defense, and most especially, friends and family members of the patriots of September 11th, 2001. Welcome to the Pentagon, and thank you for joining us as we gather here to honor those lost on that tragic day and to recognize the heroes who rose to the occasion in the face of evil. This morning's ceremony affirms our commitment to never forget that fateful day 18 years ago. On 9/11, terrorists from a distant land attacked the spirit of our nation. On a grassy field in Pennsylvania, in the Twin Towers of New York City, and here at the Pentagon, they stole the lives of thousands of innocent people. Fearful of American values, ideas, and freedoms, our nation's enemies sought to dim the beacon of hope that America has long shown throughout the world. And while the terrorist attacks brought great pain, the American people responded with even greater bravery and determination. Most of us recall exactly where we were when we first learned that our nation was under attack. Some were at work, others were at home. A number of you were present in this very building when Flight 77 crashed through its concrete walls. In every case, we remember the initial shock and disbelief we felt when the first airliners struck the World Trade Center. We remember the stories of our fellow Americans who chose to run toward the smoke and fire to save others. And we remember our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who brought justice to those responsible. But on this 18th anniversary of 9/11, service members who were not even born on that day now stand among our ranks. As each year passes and the details of that tragic day fade, we must ensure the memories of the departed do not. This memorial, where we gather for today's ceremony, stands as an enduring testament to remember them, to honor them, to recall their sacrifice. But also, it inspires future generations to serve in defense of our great nation. Throughout our history, America has faced challenges from many adversaries. And while 9/11 may have transformed our great nation, it also reaffirmed America's commitment to defend our people and our way of life, a commitment that remains unchanged since the founding of the Republic 243 years ago. I am proud to stand here today with all of you as we remember all of those who gave their lives so that all of us may continue to live in freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great privilege to welcome a leader who has kept America safe and secure, a commander-in-chief who has rebuilt our military, and a president who puts the defense of our great nation and our people above all else. Please join me in welcoming the President of the United States, President Donald Trump.
Well, thank you very much, Secretary Esper. Today, our nation honors and mourns the nearly 3,000 lives that were stolen from us on September 11th, 2001. On these grounds, 184 people were murdered when al-Qaeda terrorists overtook American Airlines Flight 77 and crashed it into the Pentagon. For every American who lived through that day, the September 11th attack is seared into our soul. It was a day filled with shock, horror, sorrow, and righteous fury. I vividly remember when I first heard the news. I was sitting at home watching a major business television show. Early that morning, Jack Welch, the legendary head of General Electric, was about to be interviewed when all of a sudden they cut away. At first, there were different reports. It was a boiler fire, but I knew that boilers aren't at the top of a building. It was a kitchen explosion in Windows on the World. Nobody really knew what happened. There was great confusion. I was looking out of a window from a building in Midtown Manhattan, directly at the World Trade Center, when I saw a second plane at a tremendous speed go into the second tower. It was then that I realized the world was going to change. I was no longer going to be, and it could never, ever be, that innocent place that I thought it was. Soon after, I went down to Ground Zero with men who worked for me to try to help in any little way that we could. We were not alone. So many others were scattered around, trying to do the same. They were all trying to help. But for the families who join us, this is your anniversary of personal and permanent loss. It's the day that has replayed in your memory 1,000 times over. The last kiss, the last phone call, the last time hearing those precious words, "I love you." Then the attack, the anguish of knowing your family member had boarded one of these flights or was working in the World Trade Center or serving right here at the Pentagon. You waited, you prayed, you answered that most dreaded call, and your life changed forever. To each of you, the First Lady and I are united with you in grief. We come here in the knowledge that we cannot erase the pain or reverse the evil of that dark and wretched day. But we offer you all that we have, our unwavering loyalty, our undying devotion, and our eternal pledge that your loved ones will never, ever be forgotten. 18 years ago, the terrorists struck this citadel of power and American strength. But the enemy soon learned that they could not weaken the spirit of our people. In times of distress, the heart of the American patriot only grows stronger and more determined. Even in the midst of the attack, the world witnessed the awesome power of American defiance. 40 passengers and crew on Flight 93 rose up, fought back, and thwarted the enemy's wicked plans. In their final moments, these American heroes thunderously declared that we alone decide our fate. We saw American perseverance in the valiant New York firefighters, police officers, first responders, military, and everyday citizens who raced into the crashing towers to rescue innocent people. One such American was retired Army Colonel Rick Rescorla, who gave his life on 9/11. Rick earned the Silver Star and the Purple Heart for his service in Vietnam. He later became the Vice President for Security at Morgan Stanley in the World Trade Center. On the day of the attack, Rick died while leading countless others to safety. His selfless actions saved approximately 2,700 lives. Today, I'm honored to announce that we will soon be awarding the late Rick Rescorla the Presidential Citizens Medal for his extraordinary sacrifice. Though Rick has left this earth, we will ensure that the memory of his deeds will never, ever be forgotten. His memory will forever endure. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. Here on the western side of the Pentagon, we saw brave men and women rush into the fire and race into the scorching flames to rescue their colleagues. When evil seeks to do us harm, the incredible men and women of the United States military answer with unyielding valor and unstoppable resolve. Navy Admiral David Thomas crawled through live wires and helped lift a wall of debris to save the life of a colleague. As Admiral Thomas remembers, it was the worst day of my life, but the heroism and selfless disregard I saw that horrible morning is forever burned in my heart. Admiral Thomas, America salutes you and every patriot who defied evil that day. Thank you very much, Admiral. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Army Ranger Chris Brayman repeatedly went back inside the burning building, rescuing one injured person after another. Before he entered, he said a prayer and asked God to give him strength, and then he dove into the suffocating smoke and fumes and flames. At the same time, Sheila Moody had just prayed that someone would find her. Then she heard Chris's voice. As Sheila says, God sent Chris as her guardian angel. To Sheila and Chris, America is strengthened by your goodness and your grace and your bravery. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. to fulfill our unbreakable promise to every survivor and family of 9/11. Earlier this year, we fully reauthorized the Victims' Compensation Fund to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. Since September 11th, nearly 6 million young men and women have joined the United States Armed Forces. They have crossed seas, climbed mountains, trekked through deserts, and rushed into enemy compounds to face down the threat of radical Islamic terrorism. Nearly 7,000 service members have laid down their lives to protect our home, our flag, and our American way of life. American freedom survives only because there are patriots willing to sacrifice everything in its defense. No tribute is sufficient to convey the infinite depth of our nation's gratitude. On this solemn day of remembrance, our thoughts also turn to the 200,000 valiant soldiers, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and Marines who are now, at this very moment, stationed overseas. We do not seek conflict, but if anyone dares to strike our land, we will respond with the full measure of American power and the iron will of the American spirit, and that spirit is unbreakable. We had peace talks scheduled a few days ago. I called them off when I learned that they had killed a great American soldier from Puerto Rico and 11 other innocent people. They thought they would use this attack to show strength, but actually what they showed is unrelenting weakness. The last 4 days, we have hit our enemy harder than they have ever been hit before, and that will continue. And if for any reason they come back to our country, we will go wherever they are and use power the likes of which the United States has never used before. And I'm not even talking about nuclear power. They will never have seen anything like what will happen to them. No enemy on earth can match the overwhelming strength, skill, and might of the American armed forces. And we have rebuilt and strengthened in the last 2.5 years, spending $700 billion, $716 billion, and now just approved $738 billion, more money by far than ever spent on our armed forces. You are the fearless sentinels who stand watch over all that we cherish and everything we hold sacred, priceless, and dear. This morning, we also give thanks to the dedicated men and women at the Department of Homeland Security. Their department was created after 9/11 to help secure our immigration system and ensure that those who threaten our people are denied entry to our shores. We're indebted to every law enforcement official, state, local, and federal, who devotes their life to keeping America safe. As we gather at this moment and at this incredible memorial, we are reminded that there is no greater testament to our fallen heroes than the presence of their families who knew and loved them so much. Among the family members here today is Stephanie Dunn. Her husband, Navy Commander Patrick Dunn, was one of the patriots who gave his life right here 18 years ago. Before he left that morning, Patrick gave Stephanie a big, beautiful kiss. Then, for the first time, he leaned down and kissed her pregnant stomach. Stephanie was just 2 months along with their first child. Earlier this year, their daughter, Allie, celebrated her 17th birthday. Allie grew up into a strong, truly remarkable young woman. She mentors the children of our nation's wounded warriors. And recently, I was honored to give Allie the President's Volunteer Service Award for her hundreds of hours of community service. We are blessed to have Allie here with us at today's ceremony. Thank you, Allie. Thank you. Thank you, Cole. And Allie, I know your dad is watching over you. He's right up there. He's watching from heaven, looking down right now with love and pride. He is so proud of you. Thank you very much. Incredible. Also joining us is the Viggiano family. For generations, the Viggiano family has served in our military and in the New York City Fire and Police departments. These are two great departments. I grew up with them, I know. On September 11th, NYPD detective Joseph Viggiano rushed into the World Trade Center and died rescuing his fellow citizens. His brother John was a New York firefighter. He also gave his life that day at Ground Zero. At the time, Joseph's three sons were just young boys, ages 8, 6, and 3 months old. This morning, they are with us. The youngest, John, just started his freshman year of college at SUNY Maritime College, and he plans to join the military. Joseph Jr. is a Marine reservist, and just like his father, he is a proud member of the NYPD. And James is a corporal in the Marines. On his last deployment, James was stationed on the USS New York, a ship made using 24 tons of steel from the World Trade Center. Every time he left the mess hall on his way to his bunk, he passed a picture of his dad. To John, Joseph, and James, and to the Viggiano family, you have sacrificed beyond measure, and you will never, ever stop giving back to this country. And thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Very proud of you. Thank you. Thank you very much. The heroes present today remind us of an immortal truth. The future of our nation is secured through the vigilance of our people. The brave men and women who tore through the gates of hell to save the hurt and the wounded. The service members who honor the friends who perished by continuing their exceptional life of service. The moms and dads who endure the loss of their soulmates and fill their children's lives with all of the adoration in the world. The sons and daughters who suffered grave loss and yet through it all persevere to care for our neighbors, defend our homeland, and safeguard our nation. Each of your lives tells the story of courage and character, virtue and valor, resilience and resolve, loyalty and love. This morning, we make a sacred vow to carry on this noble legacy. Today and every day, we pledge to honor our history, to treasure our liberty, to uplift our communities, to live up to our values, to prove worthy of our heroes, and above all, stronger than ever, to never, ever forget. We are now and will forever be one American family, united by patriotism, bound by destiny, and sustained by the faith of Almighty God. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our military. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please render honors for the playing of taps.
night with fall. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, America, my home.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's observance. Thank you for joining us this morning. Please remain in place for the departure of the official party. You are welcome to visit the chapel after the official party's departure or remain inside the memorial.
Amber wings of grace. the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace, eternally. mountains, to the prairies, to the ocean's white reform. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love, pledge thee my allegiance, America the bold. For this is my country to have, and to hold let freedom ring, let freedom ring. And where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, I see,
man starting a business career, prayed the Lord's Prayer with an airphone operator, and recited a verse from the 23rd Psalm, only then to speak words that would echo the resolve of a nation. Let's roll. History records they ran forward. They charged toward the cockpit. And at 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 plummeted to the earth. Right here. In the early days after the attacks, a Pennsylvania state trooper hung an American flag on an old drag line, sitting atop a hill overlooking this crash site. But now, 18 years later, there stands a memorial and an even more fitting tribute to the courage and sacrifice of that day. Just not far from here stands a 93-foot-tall Tower of Voices, which today holds 8 chimes, each with a different musical note, to symbolize the voices of all of those lost 18 years ago. When played together, the notes form a perfect harmony, just as in their final moments, the men and women of Flight 93 worked in concert to defend our nation, defend our capital, and defend our way of life. The Bible tells us that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. And that's our prayer for you this day and every day. And it's our prayer for all of the families all across our nation who meet this day each year to remember a personal loss. We're with you. To the families gathered here, you honor us by your The American people will never forget or ever fail to be inspired by the courage of the men and women of Flight 93. We honor them by remembering them. And we honor them by resolving here and now that we will do as they did, each of us, in all of our varied roles, to prevent such evil from ever reaching our shores again. When Flight 93 went down, the heroes aboard were the first of a new generation of Americans to rise up as citizen soldiers in what would come to be known as the global war on terror. After September 11th, the rising generation of the new millennium also answered the call. And recruiting stations across the country had lines around the block. Since this day 18 years ago, 5.5 million Americans have stepped forward to defend our country by enlisting in the armed forces of the United States, and we honor each and every one of them this day. And we especially honor the memory of the nearly 7,000 other Americans who gave their lives on other fields of battle since this day 18 years ago. To their families looking on, we pledge we will never forget or fail to honor the service and sacrifice of our fallen heroes. Today we honor those who fell on this hallowed ground. And in honoring them, we also honor every fallen hero since that day. We honor them by remembering their sacrifice. And as President Trump has done from the first day of this administration, we also honor our fallen by ensuring that the men and women serving in our armed forces today have the resources, training, and equipment to accomplish their mission and defend this nation. And this we will always do. We did not start this war. We did not seek it. But in every year that's passed, our armed forces have taken the fight to the enemy on our terms, on their soil. We've met the evildoers with a resolve and force beyond anything they could have imagined. Our armed forces took the fight to the terrorists who attacked us in the mountains of Afghanistan. Their mastermind met justice at the hands of Navy SEALs in Abbottabad. And our armed forces just this year captured the last inch of territory controlled by the barbaric ISIS caliphate. But the threat of terrorism remains, and I can assure you, under this Commander-in-Chief, our armed forces will never relent until the earth is purged of the scourge of radical Islamic terrorism. What the terrorists of 9/11 did not understand is that the American people's love of peace is exceeded only by our resolve to defend our freedom. The fiery ordeal through which the heroes of Flight 93 passed lit the way for heroes that were to come. And it will inspire generations of Americans for all time. It is truly a privilege to be with you today here in Shanksville, along with my wife Karen, to honor the memory of the heroes of Flight 93. I pay tribute as Vice President and as a grateful American. But as I said when we were here 2 years ago, for us and our family, it's personal. 17 years ago, I was serving in Congress, and my wife and I made a point to bring our 3 small children here to this hallowed ground on a drive back from Washington, D.C. to Indiana. It was less than a year from that terrible day. But we wanted to come here to pay our respects and make sure that our children saw this place and knew what happened here. I remember that day like it was yesterday. We didn't find this impressive memorial. We found a plywood wall painted with the names of the fallen. A timeline listed. And a wooden cross in the field. With the help of one park ranger, we learned of the sequence of that day. And I remember asking the ranger, if the United States Capitol was the target, at what time would the plane have reached the Capitol building? And what she told me, I'll never forget. For at the time she mentioned, I, along with hundreds of others, was standing near the east front of the House of Representatives. As I stand before you today, I say from my heart, I will always believe that I and many others in our nation's capital were able to go home that day and hug our families because of the courage and selflessness of your families, the heroes of Flight 93. 2 years ago on this occasion, I toured the Memorial Museum. And there I took note of one of the possessions of a passenger that was recovered at the crash site. Among what was left of what Todd Beamer brought on board was a book entitled A Life of Integrity by Howard Hendricks. As I looked at the display through the glass, I was struck by the book's title and how perfectly it represented what the men and women of Flight 93 demonstrated on that day, 18 years ago. Shortly thereafter, I purchased a copy of the same edition of that devotional book. And it has flown with me every day since on Air Force Two as a quiet tribute, not just to the man, but to all the passengers and crew of Flight 93 for all you've done for us. For what your loved ones did for my little family and countless others in our nation's capital that day. We thank you. When heroes fall, words fail. For no greater love has a man than this, that he should lay down his life for his friends. This then is what the heroes of Flight 93 did. And it's important that we tell their story. I'm grateful that all of you are here today to hear it one more time. It's important that we tell their stories. Because as has already been observed, a whole generation of Americans has come of age with no personal memory of 9/11. So the rest of us, my fellow Americans, must tell the story. We must never forget and never fail to honor the memory of those who were lost here in New York City and in Washington, D.C. And this we will do. We will tell their story. We will honor their memory, always. So to the families of the fallen, as President Trump said this morning at the Pentagon, I say now, the memory of your loved ones will never die. They will always be with us. We will always tell their story to future generations. And as long as this nation endures, Americans will ever be inspired by the faithful and courageous words and deeds of the heroes of Flight 93. So may God bless our beloved fallen. May God bless and comfort the families gathered here and all those who suffered loss on this day 18 years ago. And may God continue to bless the United States of America with such men and women as the passengers and crew of Flight 93.
Gary,
Yeah.
will you tell Tim to come back in? I don't like him sitting.
Okay. Come on down.
What are you saying?
Come on
Come down. It's not
Come
safe.
down?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna need room when you
Go ahead, I got you.
Yeah.